Okay, so here's a short video on how to do your formal analysis paper for our class. I just want to remind you all that there are very thorough instructions posted to the course website. There also is an example of this paper, a paper that a student submitted in a previous version of this class and received an A plus for. So if you want to see exactly what the final paper, the final results of this paper should look like, please consult that sample paper. And there's a few other resources to help you do this assignment. But I wanted to go over everything just so you have an even greater amount of clarity on what you are doing. So the purpose of this assignment is to practice a close reading of cinematic text. You are to select a brief scene from Within Our Gates. That is the film we are using. You are select a brief scene from Within Our Gates consisting of exactly 6 shots to analyze in great detail. Your goal is to understand how each and every detail of the cinematic text combines to make meaning of the whole film. Here's how you do this assignment. You must use Within Our Gates. You should begin by selecting a sequence from the film carefully. You get 6 shots, no more, no less. The 6 shots have to be a sequence, meaning they have to be 6 in a row. You cannot pick 1 or 2 shots from the beginning of the film, 1 or 2 shots from the middle, and a shot at the end. You must choose a 6-shot sequence. I would say that next sentence is a very strong recommendation. Don't feel like you need to pick the most dramatic, symbolic, or complicated parts of the film. Often the simplest and seemingly least significant moments are the best ones for a segment analysis, because you'll find the real drama is always present somewhat during such moments. Once you've selected your sequence, watch it over and over and over again. Each time you watch it, take notes on different aspects of the film's form: mise-en-scène, camera angles, cutting patterns, blocking and movement, sound, music, and so forth. Watch it one time through and just take notes on mise-en-scène. Watch it another time through and just take notes on the camera angles, and on and on and on. Then consider, once you have a thorough list of notes about all of the different aspects, how do different components work together to build the scene and to build meaning? So in other words, how do the cutting patterns work with the blocking? How does the camera angles work with the music or the mise-en-scène? Strong analysis is going to be able to link multiple pieces or multiple elements of the film form together to make convincing arguments about what the film is saying or how Michaud is constructing meaning around race in your sequence. Next, when you write your paper, do not use evaluative language. You are not writing a movie review. You're not trying to convince me that Within Our Gates is a good or a bad movie. I already know it's a good movie. Your job is not to write a film review. Your job is to look closely at a 6-shot sequence from Within Our Gates and learn what and how it communicates meaning. Next, the paper itself. Your paper should be clearly structured into 4 parts. This is not a traditional essay. You are going to have 4 parts that are clearly marked: part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. You should also use the provided handout, which is on the course website, Useful Terms for Film Analysis. The first part of the paper is your introduction, in which you will situate your clip by giving a very brief synopsis of where your clip appears during the film. You should assume that I've seen the film and I am your reader. You do not need to give me background on who Oscar Michaud is, when he was born, or anything like that. Instead, you should start your paper by saying, my clip comes from this minute in Within Our Gates. In the minutes leading up to this sequence, this has happened. After this sequence, this is what happens. During this sequence, this is what's going to happen. That's all that I need to see. Then your introduction needs to conclude with a strong, detailed, complex, argumentative thesis statement that presents a clear argument about how the film presents a particular style and how these stylistic choices speak to the larger issues presented in the film as a whole. Altogether, this should be a short paragraph. If you're looking for a basic format of a thesis statement, you would say something like, in this sequence, Oscar Michaud uses mise-en-scène, lighting, camera angles, or any other sort of film form elements to say X, Y, and Z about race and gender, for example. Okay, the second part of the paper requires you to fill out a shot chart. This is the shot chart. You will number your shots 1 through 6. You will note the time signature of each shot. What I mean by the time signature is where in the film does it occur. The time signature is the minute and second in which that shot first appears. So your time signature will say something like 32 minutes, 57 seconds. The point of the time signature is I should be able to look at it, go into my copy of Within Our Gates, cue up the time signature you've said, and I'm immediately in your sequence or on the shot that I'm looking at. You then will discuss the camera height and angle of your shot. Again, camera height meaning, is it a long shot? Is it a medium shot? Is it a close-up? And is the angle, is it a low angle where the camera is looking up at the characters from down below? Is it a high angle where the camera is up above the characters looking down on them? Or, most likely in a film like Within Our Gates, is it a straight-on angle? So you'll write something like medium shot, straight-on angle. Next, you'll discuss any camera movements. Again, in Within Our Gates, when we're in the 1910s and 1920s, cameras are really heavy, so there's not a ton of movement. But you might have a pan from left to right, and you would want to note that. Camera pans to the left, if it's there. Otherwise, you can put no camera movements. The next one is the most detailed section. It's the composition or blocking. That's when you have to explain who is in the frame, where are they positioned, and what do they do. So something like Sylvia Landry sits at a desk to the right side of the frame writing a letter. That's what we mean by composition or blocking. While her friend stands off to the side watching her. That's kind of the things that you would put in composition or blocking. Now cuts. Cuts deals with what is the transition from the shot you are discussing to the subsequent shot. If it's a basic cut, right, it just goes from shot 1 to shot 2, you can put basic cut. If, however, you might have something like a dissolve or a fade, you might have something where the cut sweeps from right to left or from left to right, you want to note that. Within Our Gates, you're most likely going to have, if there's anything other than a basic cut, you're going to have fades. Fade to black, for example. After you've filled out your shot chart, and again, there is an example on the course website of a brilliantly filled out shot chart by a former student in this class. You then go to the most important section of your paper, which is the actual analysis of your clip. Remember, what is the clip saying and how is it saying it visually? So for example, how is mise-en-scène used to create tension or mark racial difference? How does the camera movement accentuate the motion of the actors? What overall effect does the cutting pattern create? And so on and so forth. You do not have to answer any or all of the questions I've given you. Those are just examples of things you would want to address. Ideas of things you might want to look at. How are the visual elements of the film marking racial difference? How are visual components of the film used to accentuate the drama? How are they used to create further tension? And so on and so forth. Remember, focus on the visual elements of the film. The dialogue is not important. This is a silent film. Film is a visual medium. I want to see you analyzing the visual elements of this film. My big suggestion in how to put all this together is you should not organize your analysis in a chronological fashion. I do not want an analysis section that says, in shot 1, this happens, and it means this. In shot 2, this happens, and it means this. In shot 3, shot 4, shot 5, shot 6. Instead, you should organize your analytic paragraphs around ideas related to the sorts of questions I've provided examples for. Right? Throughout this sequence, X and Y elements of mise-en-scène are used to do X, Y, and Z. For example, in shot 1, we see this technique used in this way. In shot 3, it's repeated again in this way. In shots 5 and 6, it's used in a slightly different but also very similar way. Right? So in that sense, if you're organizing your analysis around the visual elements and you're making sure that what you're providing me is an analysis rather than a summary of the sequence. So A+ essays organize their analysis around the visual things they are going to examine, not a chronological movement through the sequence. Lastly, a conclusion. You will offer me a short conclusion, just a paragraph or so, that draws the larger interpretive connections between the few minutes of films you obsess with and the film text as a whole. So in other words, how does your small little sequence relate to the overall meaning around race in the film? Now, your paper, excluding charts, should be 4 to 5 pages in length. What I mean by this is if you take your chart out, you need to have at least 4 pages. What do I think of those 4 pages look like? Well, your introduction and your conclusion should be about half a page to 3/4 of a page in length. So let's say the introduction and conclusion together is about 1 to 1.5 pages. That means you need 2.5 to 3 pages minimum of analysis. I would say you need 3 pages of analysis minimum, and then your introduction and conclusion add up to the 4 to 5 page length. So what you're really striving for here is 3 to 4 pages of detailed analysis. And again, all the information about due dates are on the syllabus. You also have this resource, which is sort of a glossary of film analysis. And the last thing I want to do is show you what one of these clips looks like. So I have one from Birth of a Nation. We're obviously not doing that film for this paper, but here's what one might look like. Okay, so here's a sequence. Here's shot 1, right? I'd give you the time signature. It's pretty early on in the film. I'd note that it starts with a medium shot, and then this has some camera movements, right? This pans down to the floor. If I was talking about the composition and blocking, I'd mention that Dr. Cameron is sitting in a chair. His son Ben stands to his left, and both of them are looking at a newspaper. The camera then pans down to see puppies on the floor and a cat in Dr. Cameron's lap. Here's shot 2. Again, this is sort of a medium shot. We see 4 characters. There's a young Flora there, the young girl on the left. And I describe the actions here of how they start off standing in very different positions. Flora moves over to her brother and then jumps up on him and they embrace lovingly. Here's shot 3. This is a close-up of 2 puppies at the foot of Dr. Cameron. Here's shot 4. That's Margaret Cameron walking down the steps. Shot 5, a cat. I would say a cat fall. Shot 5 is a repeat of shot 3, except the action in this one is a cat being dropped down onto on top of the puppies. And again, I just have this clip on a loop, so I would watch this again and again and again. So once I've gone through and I've diagrammed all 6 shots, and I filled all of this out. Now you might say in that clip I showed, I had one title card, right? There's that title card in there that says hostilities. Does that count as a shot? You do not have to count title cards. So I could ignore the title card. Now, what I would do is I would watch this sequence over and over and over. And so I might look for, the first time I might look at the use of camera movements, right? There's very clearly a pan here down to the floor. It's clear D.W. Griffith wants us to take note of the animals. We see the cat peering over Dr. Cameron's arm, looking down at these 2 puppies. There's no real camera movement here, but we do have a wide shot where we see, all 4 of these characters interacting in one way or another. There's this kind of playful game going on between Ben Cameron and his baby sister Flora. I also would note that the enslaved black woman who there stands on the back looks on sort of approvingly and happily and applauds this sort of playful interaction between these 2 siblings. Now we're getting a close-up of puppies. That seems both weird, but it also must be significant. Shot 4 is going to ultimately be kind of a throwaway. But here's shot 5. Shot 5 is a repeat of shot 3, and then a cat comes in, and they sort of have a problem, and Griffith is going to call that hostilities. And so all of those things, I could go back and look at different elements here. Maybe I want to look at lighting this time. Maybe I want to look at other sorts of things. But every time I can look at this and find more and more things to take note of, and eventually then I'm going to put all that together in the form of a paper structured in the way that you are supposed to do so. Okay, I hope that clears up any questions. Good luck on writing this paper.